towering prop roots.
An array of incredible biodiversity, some of which are found here alone.
And mind-bogglingly dense networks of branches and roots that protect us from the worst effects of storms.
Our mangroves are truly magnificent.
But while there's certainly a sight to behold, one of the most impressive things about our mangroves actually lies right beneath our feet. Mohammed with the Ministry of Planning and Development, and I'm here today with a team from the Institute of Marine Affairs who is going to show us why, in the quest to improve climate change mitigation strategies, they're taking their research underground. Hamish Asmat, GIS officer at the IMA, is going to take us deeper into their new research project.
So what we're working on is trying to find the best location where we can take a soil core. We need to get down to ideally at least 1 meter in depth, and this is part of the Mangrove Soil Carbon Assessment Project. So this is a regional project involving Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana and Suriname, funded by the British High Commission. It will give us the first measurements of mangrove soil carbon for these countries involved. Carbon dioxide is one of the main drivers of climate change. Mangrove soils actually store 4 to 20 times as much carbon as the trees that are above them. In fact, mangrove soils actually store many more times the amount of carbon as regular forests.
There's no silver bullet when it comes to combating climate change. We need to investigate all possibilities. And that means not just finding ways to reduce emissions, but also exploring methods to remove and keep carbon out of the atmosphere. Finding creative strategies to combat climate change means studying and harnessing the full potential of the already existing solutions in our natural environment. One of these is biological carbon sequestration.
As trees grow, they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They incorporate this into their leaves and to their woody tissues. When all of this organic matter falls or dies, falls onto the surface of the mangrove soils, all of these prop roots which we have around us trap that carbon and doesn't allow it to get dispersed. There's a very fine matrix of roots, very fibrous roots, which help to hold all of this organic matter and carbon in the soil. And that carbon decomposes into the soil. As they break down, the carbon is incorporated into the soil. In addition, because they exist in estuarine environments, they're very high in silts and clays, and the carbon is easily trapped by this. When we get back from the field, we take the wet weight of the samples. They're then placed in the oven at 60 degrees Celsius for 3 to 5 days. At that point, they're completely and thoroughly dried, and we take the dry weight. The dry weight and the volume of the sample is used to calculate the bulk density, which is an essential component when we're calculating the total amount of carbon in the mangrove soils. When you multiply the bulk density by the carbon percentage, you get the total amount of carbon in that sample.
So these carbon profiles for the various soil samples are used to calculate the total carbon stored in each study area. The research is robust. They're testing the effects of different parameters on stored carbon. So they're testing sites with red mangroves versus black mangroves versus replanted sites, and many more. What I wanted to know though is, how could we use this? What's the potential impact of data like this?
In the Caribbean, we have not actually quantified how much carbon is actually stored in our mangrove soils. This would be our first assessment of the amount of carbon stored in the soils.
That's Dr. Rahana Juman. She's the director of the IMA and all-round wetlands expert. I reached out to her to find out about the significance of the study.
The significance of this is that understanding how much carbon is stored helps in terms of how we can use this information, how we can monetize this information. There are initiatives under the Climate Change Convention, UNFCCC Convention. We talk about REDD+, which is reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. And mangroves are to be included under this project again, and looking at an initiative like this where we could actually receive payments to preserve our mangrove forests in a relatively pristine state, or to rehabilitate degraded ecosystems so that they can continue to store the carbon Countries in the Caribbean can also eventually participate in carbon trading markets, which are relatively new markets, and they're still working out the mechanism by which the carbon is going to be monetized. But by having robust data on the amount of carbon that's actually stored in our mangrove forests, both in the biomass and in the sediment, we're sort of proactive and waiting. So when that opportunity comes along, we could be engaged in carbon trading in these international markets. And this would help us to preserve our mangrove forests.
But it doesn't end at helping direct conservation efforts and being proactive about future opportunities. Dr. Juman told me that this data, which will be publicly available, can be used by current net emitter companies in considering mangrove restoration to offset some emissions, and by policymakers to support evidence-based decision-making. Research like this is not only an integral part of Theme 5 of Vision 2030, placing the environment at the center of our social and economic development, but it also supports our national commitment to global efforts, like the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Goal 13, climate action. More than ever, the international community needs to cooperate on climate action. While this research was spearheaded by the IMA, it's happening in collaboration with other Caribbean researchers, universities, and government bodies, and was funded by the British High Commission. Her Excellency Harriet Cross, British High Commissioner to Trinidad and Tobago, told me about the value of working together to facilitate projects like these.
The reason is simple and the science is clear. Climate change is a deadly threat to humanity. We must urgently scale up action to have a chance of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees. Trinidad and Tobago is a small island developing state. The UK recognises how devastating changes in climate could be to this country. This is why, over the past 5 years, we've been working closely with partners in government, business, academia and civil society to promote a greater prioritisation of the environment. Our latest project with the Institute of Marine Affairs builds on work done with Professor John Agard and the University of the West Indies around carbon sequestration in mangroves. This recent project shows the importance of ensuring we are collecting the right data to make informed choices. Information on carbon sequestered in the above and below ground mangrove soil will be important as Trinidad and Tobago works to achieve its nationally determined contributions and fulfil commitments to UN Sustainable Development Goals. Projects like this help us be ambitious, meet the Paris Agreement goals, support stronger national action and stronger international collaboration, all of which is needed to tackle climate change and protect current and future generations.
Our mangroves are truly incredible. They're one of the most productive ecosystems on Earth, and they absolutely teem with life. But in our region until recently, they were also one of the least studied and least understood. Thanks to the researchers at the IMA and their collaborators, and their literally groundbreaking research, we're finally beginning to understand the true value that these amazing forests hold. To learn more about this project and other environmental initiatives from the Ministry of Planning and the IMA, follow us on social media at Planning TT and at IMA Gov TT. I'm Crystal Mohammed. Thank you for watching.